Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, why do individuals who have high scores in extraversion tend to have more positive emotions? Now, to help answer this question, I'll be using an article that was published in 2015 by Smiley and colleagues, and I'll put the reference to this article in the description of this video. So I'm going to be looking at extraversion as it's described in the five-factor model of personality. So I'm going to review the five-factor model quickly to start with. The Big Five, or five-factor model, has 5 traits that explain personality. We remember them through the acronym OCEAN: openness to experience, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And each of the 5 traits has 6 facets under it. So we break down the traits into different constructs. One of those constructs for extraversion is called positive emotions. Sometimes it's referred to as cheerfulness. And of course we see a fairly strong association between this facet and the trait level extraversion, meaning many people that are high in extraversion are high in this particular facet of positive emotions. Although it is possible, of course, to have a low score on positive emotions and still have high scores on some of the other facets of extraversion. It's important to remember as well that positive emotions, that construct, that's not the same thing as an absence of negative emotions. Positive emotions are considered, again, a facet of extraversion. Negative emotions, that's a facet of neuroticism. So somebody can have high positive emotions and still have high negative emotions. They can be high on extraversion and high on neuroticism, specifically those particular facets, positive emotions and negative emotions, at the same time. So next, let's take a look at the construct of extraversion. What's it mean to be extroverted? Well, with extraversion, we see a tendency to be gregarious, talkative, assertive, bold, friendly, enthusiastic, excitement-seeking. Sometimes people who are high in extraversion are described as the life of the party. Sometimes they're described as having a strong personality. And there's also a tendency, of course, to have positive emotions, to be cheerful. I mentioned that earlier. In general, we think of people with high extroversion scores as individuals who gain energy from social interaction. Now, when we look at low extroversion, sometimes referred to as introversion, we see other tendencies. The tendency to be quiet, reserved, gaining energy from being alone, or sometimes gaining energy from being with just one other person, but usually not in a large group. And we also see the ability to deeply analyze information. Now, there is also this tendency to have lower positive emotions. Now, we look at the five-factor model of personality theory and extroversion specifically, we see that there are both positive and negatives associated with high and low scores on different facets. So for example, somebody could look at the imagination we see with openness to experience and look at that as valuable. Or look at several of the facets of conscientiousness to be valuable. Conscientiousness is associated with a lot of positive aspects like being productive at work. Similarly, somebody could look at extroversion and may not be attracted to a lot of the different facets there, but still want that positive emotion piece. Generally, when we look at mental health treatment, a lot of the goals we see in mental health treatment is somebody wants to experience more positive emotions. There have been some really interesting findings on how to capture positive emotions even if someone has a low score in extroversion. For example, we see research that indicates that behaving in an extroverted manner, for example, being bold, assertive, talkative, or adventurous, can still lead to higher positive affect, higher positive emotions, even if that individual has a low score in extroversion. So this is really a behavioral strategy that we see sometimes with mental health counseling. We also see some theories about this relationship between extroversion and positive affect or positive emotions called the social activity hypothesis. Now, this hypothesis states that the amount of time spent in social situations is what really leads to positive affect. So the theory here is that individuals who are high in extroversion tend to spend more time in social situations. Therefore, social activity mediates the relationship between extroversion and positive affect. The problem with this hypothesis is it's not really supported by the research. There are mixed results. We see that there are experiments that control for the amount of time, so all of the participants spend the same amount of time in social situations, and we still see increased positive affect in individuals who behave in an extroverted way as opposed to people who behave in an introverted way. So even when time is controlled, we still see that effect. So time isn't explaining that relationship between extroversion and positive affect. So that really brings me specifically to the results of the study I'm talking about here in this video. What they really did here was they looked at the qualitative aspects instead of the quantitative. So the quantitative, of course, being the amount of time spent in social situations, but the qualitative aspects look at other features of extroversion, like the tendency of individuals who are high in extroversion to feel attached or close to other individuals. So it's not just the amount of time they spend, it's the quality of that relationship. So the results from the study were fairly interesting. This construct they referred to in the study as social contribution actually tends to mediate the relationship between extroversion and positive affect. And what this means is that when an individual feels like they're making an impact in a social situation, like they're being helpful, that's when they tend to experience positive affect. Now, the concept of social integration was not a mediator, and that's the closeness piece. So feeling close to other individuals did predict higher life satisfaction, but it did not predict higher positive affect. So what can we learn from the results of this study? Well, making a positive difference in social situations, making a positive difference in the lives of other people, tends to lead to positive affect. So that's really explaining this relationship between extroversion and positive affect. So this is really an interesting finding, and of course, as with all studies in personality theory and all studies in mental health in general, this really encourages more research. There's still a lot we need to know about extroversion and positive emotions. I hope you found this description of extroversion and positive emotions to be interesting. Thanks for watching.